What's up, everybody? My name is Colin. I am a holistic healer, yoga meditation teacher, life coach for hundreds of professional athletes and Olympians from around the world. I also have a nonprofit called the Live Happy Project, and I'm in the process of buying land in the Dominican Republic to build a retreat center and big sustainable permaculture farm. I'm currently staying at the Govardhan Ecovillage in Maharashtra, India for the level 2 300-hour yoga teacher training course. Now, there's a lot to love about this eco-village, but one of the best things is that they have an Ayurveda clinic and fully Ayurvedic cafe on site. Now, throughout the course, they tell us repeatedly that like over 90% of the benefit of taking this course is just living in the ashram and eating this food for a month. And that's a big, bold claim because we take 4 hours a day of yoga classes and 4 to 6 hours a day of really deep, profound philosophy classes on the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutras, and just overall life philosophy. So for them to say that 90% of the benefit just comes from eating the food here, that's pretty eye-opening. And from my experience at the level 1 200-hour training last year, I have to say it's kind of true. So in my first couple days here, I made it a point to book an appointment with the Ayurveda doctor. I don't have anything like overly specific going on, but it's really interesting, and I learned a lot, and there's always room to get better. So I want to talk more about the appointment, what I learned, and maybe some of it will be useful for you. First of all, what a completely different feel and energy and vibe in a healthcare place. Nestled in this beautiful natural environment, fresh flowers, statues of gods on the wall. It's just a completely different feel from the average Western allopathic medical facility, which is generally cold and gray and sterile and lifeless. It's not a place of healing and joy and lightness. So just right from the moment you walk in the door, it's a completely different energy. You could see a lot of the herbs, even some of the leeches on the walls that they use for some of the treatments. And the pharmacy, they make most of the medicine on site, I think, but with all of the herbs that are there. Now, for the skeptics or the people who only believe in peer-reviewed meta-analysis, scientific studies, and if the literature doesn't say it, then it doesn't work. You should understand that many of the Western allopathic medicines just extracted the active ingredients from homeopathic medicine, slapped a label on it, and then upcharged it 1,000%. So for example, something like Airborne, the pills you take before you fly, or when you feel like a respiratory infection coming on to help boost your immune system, that is just directly a recipe from traditional Chinese medicine, Chinese herbalism that they just marketed with a Western name. Shout out to my acupuncturist friend TJ for putting me onto that. So you should recognize that. You should also understand the nature of science and that costs money to conduct scientific studies. So all of the research tends to be around things that make someone money, right? So you're not gonna see a lot of research on herbs and plant medicine because you can't really make a lot of money selling someone an herb or teaching them how to use the plants in nature to better their health, right? So that's a big factor as well. And that's not to say that Western medicine is bad or that it doesn't have a place, So for me, like if I break my leg, don't take me to an acupuncturist, take me to a surgeon in a hospital with antiseptics and everything else, right? But for long-term preventative care, that's where Eastern, holistic Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, that's where that all shines, is in preventative stuff. So with all that said, let me talk a little more about the appointment. So I saw the doctor. It was a very casual, stress-free, unhurried conversation. We talked for close to an hour. Like I said, I didn't have a ton of like acute issues going on, but just more things that I know that I could improve, like my digestive health, my sleep. I tend to be prone to racing mind or anxiety. It's better now, but it used to be like pretty bad. And so we talked a lot about that. She asked questions about my diet, about my exercise routine, my work, my stress levels. She taught me a lot of Ayurveda, frankly. She gave me a whole like checklist to help me understand it's called dosha, or my type in Ayurveda. Talk more about that in a second. We talked for like an hour so she could thoroughly understand what was going on. And she asked, like, do I think that these symptoms are related? So are some of the digestive issues that I experience, is that correlated with my sleep issues, or do they feel like they're separate? So thought-provoking questions just to get me reflecting as well. And then she prescribed 4 herbal medicines, which she explained, and you saw some of them in that B-roll footage. But the herbal medicines are primarily to help stoke my digestive fire, to like ramp things up before I eat. And then a couple of them for after I eat to help me extract more nutrients from my food. Now, that's because I am, in Ayurvedic language, I am very Vata energy. So in Ayurveda, there's 3 types of energy. There's Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And we all have all of those energies, and they fluctuate throughout the day. But when we get imbalanced, we tend to default toward one of those 3. We have too much of one of them. Now, for the record, I am not an expert in this by any means. I'm just sharing what I've learned. So some of you might know better than me. Feel free to drop a comment telling me how wrong I am. But I know the most about Vata because that's what I am. So that's what they talk to me about. But Vata is like a very airy element. It's very light. People who are Vata prone tend to be very thin, lightweight, longer limbed, taller, and more prone to racing mind and anxiety, which makes sense because that's what I'm more prone to. People who are more Pitta, this is like the fire element. They tend to be fiery, more prone to anger issues, but overall they're more balanced physically. So in Western language, Vata is like an ectomorph, where they have a hard time putting on muscle, but they don't really gain any fat. Pitta is a mesomorph, so they put on muscle, they put on some fat, but not a lot. Most high-level athletes tend to be mesomorphs. And then Kapha is the 3rd energy, and that's more of an earth energy. So it's more grounded, more stable. People tend to be more resistant to change, less interested in movement and exercise, like more sedentary people. And they're prone to being more overweight, right? They're endomorphs, so they put on muscle, but they also tend to hold more fat. And for me, I am more prone to Vata energy. So the herbs she gave me are to help reduce that Vata energy and balance my energy throughout the day. But she made it very clear that the herbs that they prescribe are meant to be taken for like up to 3 months, right? They're a bridge as we build better lifestyle habits to correct the imbalances on our own. And so she went into great detail about the lifestyle habits and what I can do to better manage myself so that I don't need the herbs long term. Now, specifically what she recommended is to start the day with some medicated ghee and a bunch of warm water, then 10 to 15 minutes of breathing exercises and 10 to 15 minutes of light exercise until you start to break a sweat. Now, what she explained in this is that the water and the ghee provide a medium for any toxins or any buildup or any Vata energy to move through the body. The breathing practices, right, stimulate the movement of air, like Vata is an air energy. And then the light exercise creates a sweat, which helps to release the toxins, right? So we all build up toxins from the food we eat, the pollution in the air and the water, and just life. and we need ways to get that out. So that was her 30-minute morning routine suggestion to help support better balance. And then she was very insistent that I eat at consistent times throughout the day. I tend not to do that unless I'm being very mindful. My appetite doesn't generally stimulate me to eat at consistent times. I don't get hungry that often. But she said that when we go a long time without eating, we increase our vata energy, and I'm already predisposed to vata. So that leads to me being imbalanced. So the fasting I was doing for 2 days wasn't necessarily the best thing for me in this Ayurvedic context, but you live and you learn. So people who are more vata prone, more like me, need to eat very consistently to keep the vata levels down, whereas someone who is more kapha, who has low vata levels, probably needs to do some type of intermittent fasting to allow their vata to increase and their kapha to decrease so that they can stay more balanced. Again, I'm not an expert in this, but that's what I'm learning and piecing together. She also talked more about my yoga practice and my exercise habits. Because people who are more vata tend to be hyperactive and kind of bursting with energy, and we like to be on the go all the time, which is kind of true for me in my history of marathon running and weightlifting and jiu-jitsu and dynamic yoga and all of that. But she said that for a yoga practice, that vata people need to cultivate physical stillness, right, and develop more comfort in being still, because we have lots of airy energy and we need to be able to ground that through breathing and presence while being still. So holding yoga poses for longer. Whereas on the flip side, someone who is more kapha, more heavy set, likes to be more stable, more grounded, more inert. They got to get used to being more dynamic and more active. So for me, I need more hatha, more yin yoga, whereas someone who's more kapha needs more dynamic vinyasa, ashtanga yoga. So that's all really, really useful information, and it's not something that you would ever get from a Western doctor. And it's stuff that I can directly apply and test out for myself to see if it works for me. So super, super helpful. I would recommend anyone start to explore more of these holistic practices, because if nothing else, it gives you more understanding of yourself, right? You may not have access to an Ayurveda clinic or pharmacy, but you can at least test out some of those practices, right? Cultivating more discipline in your movement practice and your breathing practices, timing your meals more appropriately, right? These are all things that we all have access to. So hopefully something in that is useful. Feel free to drop a comment, send me a message. I'm learning a lot more about this. I also have studied a bunch of other different modalities, the Chinese medicine, and obviously a bunch of Western medicine practices. So I'm trying to piece all of this together and see how Ayurveda fits in with what I already know. But the appointment itself was super useful, and the whole thing, the hour with the doctor, 4 different herbal medicines, like a month's supply, the whole thing cost me, I think, $12 with the conversion. I'm not positive, but it was definitely less than $20 for the whole thing. So it can be done. There's lots of complex reasons why it's not being done right now. But yeah, it's cool that this exists. I was actually talking to one of the higher level monks here that they're building a hospital in Mumbai called the Bhakti Vedanta Institute, which is pioneering how we can integrate Ayurveda with Western allopathic medicine and draw the best of both worlds to make one complete healthcare system. So it's beautiful. It's happening around the world. But yeah, hopefully it'll make its way to wherever you are. no discussion of Ayurveda or ashram life would be complete if we don't talk about the food. And they repeatedly say that the food here provides 90% of the benefit and the transformation of taking this course, which is, a big thing to say when they're the ones teaching us 4 hours of yoga and 6 hours of lecture every day. And what they're saying is that they're basically just keeping us busy while the environment, the nature, the food, all of that works on us to heal and transform. So the food here is all fully Ayurvedic, sattvic. In the previous episode, I talked about sattva, tamas, and rajas, right? The building energy, the maintenance energy, and the destructive energy, right? Over thousands of years, the yogis, through lots of trial and error and reflection, identified the foods that provided life energy, that sattvic energy, and they cut out all the foods that were rajas and tamas, that destructive energy. In a Western culture, most of the food is that destructive energy, right? We literally eat death in the form of animal flesh. Here, it's obviously all vegetarian. It's not vegan though. There is dairy. They incorporate cow's milk, ghee, butter, because the cows are sacred. So the fruits of the cows are sacred and nourishing. So that's a big protein source here. There's obviously also no processed food, no unhealthy oils, no processed sugar. All the food is very simple. It's flavorful, but it's very simple and not spicy. So all of that is designed to be good for our digestion, to maintain our digestive health, and to allow our bodies to stay light and energized and sensitive, right? The goal is not to get super jacked, right? Or to be super powerful as an athlete. The goal is to be a balanced human. And so that's what Ayurveda seeks to accomplish. Now, there's also an element of eating for your dosha. So I am more vata. And so they recommend more hot foods. So cold, raw vegetables are not good for me because my body is already prone to running a little cold. So I need more warm foods to warm things up, whereas someone who's more kapha needs cooling foods to down-regulate their metabolism, to cool their body down, right? And figuring out which foods have which effect on you. So really the whole thing is just bringing more mindfulness and awareness to how the foods you eat are actually affecting your body. Now, just as a personal example of that, I was here for the level 1 200-hour teacher training last year. On the first day, I ate at one of the regular cafes because I didn't even know about the Ayurveda cafe at that point. And the food was delicious. It felt super healthy. It was Indian, so it was flavorful, but it was all vegetarian. I thought it was great. I was excited that that was going to be the food for the whole course. The next day, they told us, no, there's the Ayurveda cafe. You shouldn't go to that one. That one's not healthy for you at all. Go to the Ayurveda cafe. So I go there. For the first 10 days, I'm eating strictly Ayurveda. One of the students' birthday happened during the course, and they had brought in some pure organic dark chocolate. Like, as far as sweets go, it's about as healthy and good for you as you could get. So we all had like a little bite of this chocolate, and all of us were more angry. We didn't sleep as well. On the mat the next day, the yoga teachers could tell that we had done something because all of us were way more stiff from one little bite of dark chocolate, right? It had a really profound effect, and we could all notice that effect because we had started from a blank slate. In a Western culture, we're eating that crap all the time, so we don't even perceive the effects it has on us anymore because our baseline is just already inflamed and sick and stiff. Now, so I, at that point, gave up. I don't have any interest in eating sweets or chocolate because I could feel what effect it had on me. So I continued the Ayurveda strict for another 10 days, whatever. On the last day, the Ayurveda cafe was closed, so I had to go back to the cafe that I went to at the start, which I thought at the time was super healthy and delicious, and I was excited to be eating that. I had it on the last day. I had like 2 bites. I literally couldn't eat it, and it started to make me sick from all of the oil and the fat that was in it. So it's profound when you start from baseline and see the effect that the food you're eating has on you. So it's hard to give specific diet advice to anyone without hearing your exact story and your goals. But the biggest lesson, I think, is to just bring more awareness to your food and start to feel the effect it has on you. It should be energizing and uplifting, not make you feel like you need to lie down because you're stuffed. All right, the other big thing you could see in the B-roll, they have signs up that you should practice mindful eating and be silent, right? So that you can have an actual relationship with your food. You're not distracted on your phone, watching TV, in conversation, right? To actually taste the food and feel the effect it's having on you as you eat it, right? All of that just brings more awareness to it so that you can make better choices because you can feel the effects that it's having on you. So that sums up this episode on the Ayurveda clinic and the Ayurveda diet. Feel free to drop comments, send me messages, ask questions. I'm happy to dive more into all of this. And stay tuned for coming episodes. In the next one, I'll probably talk more about some of the spirituality and philosophy, my experiences with Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, so that I can start to introduce more of the yoga philosophy and how those two compare and contrast. I'll also talk more about the actual yoga practice here because it's so different from anything that we know of yoga in the West. And we had our first lectures today. We started talking about the chakras. So expect some videos about that as well. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.